All right, guys. So the biggest storyline now that the Outlaws have rained out one of their biggest weeks of the year being the Houston Tie Bank Nationals. It's been postponed. We don't know when it's going to take place now. The biggest storyline is now who is going to drive Bill Rose's car. It was announced, a day or two ago that Bill Rose, after that pretty, terrible accident at Fremont Speedway a few weeks ago, has been racing with a broken sternum, and now they went to the doctor. They figured out that it's a pretty severe issue. And so Bill Rose will not be in the car for what sounds like 6 to 8 weeks. Now, it has been a few weeks since that crash has happened, so he's had some time to heal up, right? So I'm going to say somewhere between 6 and 7 weeks before we see Bill Rose back behind the wheel. They did post on Twitter that they are looking for candidates. They're looking for drivers to get into the car and compete for the World of Outlaws, points and things like that. He's, Bill Rose is, I want to say, 12th in points. He's, pretty far behind the next guy in front of him, but still, the sixth car is a full-time car on the Outlaw Tour. It gets tow money. It gets all the benefits of being a full-time member, and Bill Rose would like to be there with that car, and I'm sure he would be there crew chiefing it and still driving the truck and trailer and all that. And so they're looking for drivers to fit into the car. So I figured I'd put 4 guys on the board, or 8 guys total on the board, and I'll explain to you why they're split up here in just a moment. So want to look at the upcoming schedule over the next, I think I've got 5 or 6 weeks up here on the board on the Outlaw Tour that these drivers, whoever the driver is, would be racing in, right? So the upcoming schedule, next Friday and Saturday, they are at Cedar Lake Speedway in Wisconsin on June 28th and 29th. And then a few days later, they make up a rain date race at Beaver Dam Raceway for, I believe it's $20K to win on July 20th. A few nights later, they are still in Wisconsin at the Wilmot Raceway for 2 nights on July 12th and 13th. And then they make their way over to Attica, getting ready for the King's Royal. They race on a Tuesday night at Attica on July 16th. And then Friday and Saturday, the Outlaws race at Eldora for the King's Royal on the 19th and the 20th. Now, the other question is, would that number 6 car use up 2 of the allotted races that Bill Rose has? He has used one. I believe it was at Angel Park. It was kind of random. Bill Rose went and ran Angel Park. But he could use those 2 races to get that driver more comfortable in the car with high limit during their 2 nights at Eldora as well. And then they cap things off Wednesday, July 24th, so 4 days after the King's Royal at Baps Motor Speedway in PA. And then Friday and Saturday at Williams Grove, and Sunday at Weed Sport in New York. So pretty busy stretch of races coming up for the Outlaws. And if I'm Bill Rose and I want my car to contend for a top 15, and maybe at some of these racetracks contend for a top 5, in my opinion, Bill Rose has some good stuff in that trailer, right? I think it's a good race car. We saw Tim Kading, Cody Hartlob. They've driven the car pretty recently. Kading was not bad at all in that thing when it came to the West Coast and the smaller racetracks and things like that. Hartlob had no 410 experience, so it's kind of tough to say what, could have been, right? Because he didn't really have much experience. But Tim Kading was decent in that car through the California swing last year when Bill Rose was out of the car. So if I'm Bill Rose, I would take one guy to run all of the Wisconsin races and the Ohio races, and then I would take another guy and have him run at Williams Grove and New York and Weed Sport and Baps, right? You find a guy that's used to tracks in that area. Weed Sport's kind of a different thing, but Baps and the Grove, guys that have ran there throughout the year or have ran there a lot in their career. Now, the guys on this list, they all have rides right now. Some of them are family rides. Some of them are rides where they are kind of doing a pick and choose type deal. They're not following a point series. They're not, really doing anything like that. And there's a couple on here that are probably, a dream, right? That they're not going to leave what they've got going on right now to go run Bill Rose's car for a few weeks on the Outlaw Tour. But a couple of them, I could see if the opportunity came about that they would want to do it, right? So I've got right here the top 4 guys that I would see, that I would want to see run in Wisconsin and run in Ohio. Most of these racetracks on the board on that side, they're all, 3/8, quarter miles, 1/3 mile ovals. They're all small racetracks that get a good cushion on them, and they get slick, and it's a lot different than going to the Grove. And you put a guy that is normally used to racing in Ohio at the Grove, it's not going to go very well, right? But I think a guy that is raced in Ohio a little bit, he can go to Wisconsin and he can be pretty competitive, especially in a Bill Rose car. And so with that, let's jump right into it. So my top 4 guys that I would want to see run the Wisconsin and Ohio portions of the Outlaw Tour for Bill Rose. Number 1, He's had a really, really good year so far. And he's already got a ride, I know, but I've got Zane DeVault on the board. The driver of the Lane Racing number 4. Now, I know that he, races that car full time. He's running tonight, I believe, with the IRA at Bloomington. He ran all of Ohio Sprint Speed Week. He's got a couple of wins this year. He's had a breakout year. He's ran top 10 with the Outlaws at Attica. And I think that Zane DeVault, maybe he's never been to some of these races in Wisconsin, but obviously he's been to Attica, he's been to Eldora, he's been to all these tracks in Ohio. He's used to them, and I think that he can get used to tracks like Cedar Lake and Beaver Dam and Wilmot, right? I think he could figure it out relatively quick. So I've got Zane DeVault at number 4 on this side of the board. Now, when it comes to the top 3, I'm trying to remember. I thought I had it memorized, but at this point in time, I'm starting to have a little bit of a brain fade here. But I will write down my number 1 guy because I know him for sure, and that is, I mean, I don't know how this guy doesn't have a full-time ride already, but that is Cale Thomas. I think Cale Thomas has been underrated all year long, has been running in the front, in the top 10 with the Outlaws. We've seen him a couple of times with a high limit. Remember, he went quick time overall at Kokomo during that midweek show when there was, over 40 cars. He got a win during Ohio Sprint Speed Week. I think Cale Thomas is severely underrated, and I think he would do fantastic in Bill Rose's car if he went to some of these racetracks on that schedule right there. No problem. He ran last night in Michael Dutcher's 17 GP car. I don't know if he's ever been in the car before, but he ran top 10 with the IRA against a 55 car field at Lincoln Park, right? His first night in the car. Cale Thomas is a very good driver. I could see him easily being successful in this car. Now, the second guy on this list here, and now I'm working backwards because I'm remembering them as we're writing these down, but I think you got to give a guy like Caleb Henry a shot, right? Caleb Henry, he's running the Running Boxer Farms 101. They're not doing any full-time stuff, right? They've had a couple of wrecks here recently, and they haven't been able to race as many times as they want. But Caleb Henry has proven that he can adapt very quickly. He got that big win at Fremont a few weeks ago, a last lap pass to get the job done. I think Caleb Henry could be very good in this car as well. These tracks over here, mainly like Beaver Dam and Wilmot, and obviously at Attica he's already pretty good there. I think that he could take to them very quickly. Cedar Lake is kind of its own type of thing. It gets a whole different kind of slick than what maybe people are used to. But, with these guys that run in Ohio quite a bit, Cedar Lake might be right at their alley. I'm not sure. But I'm going to put Caleb Henry at number 2 on this list to drive the Bill Rose number 6 car. And the final guy got his first ever 410 win in a wing car just last night. He has been phenomenal all year long in this wing car. And this is probably one that you will not see happen, but that is going to be, and excuse my writing there, but I've got Emerson Axum on there. I think he has been one of the biggest head turners so far this year in sprint car racing. Got that win last night, a great race between him and Ayrton Jenneton. Last corner pass, but he led the whole way. He was in the dash both nights with the Outlaws at Eldora. He's been very good with them. He's ran and shown some speed and shown some flashes of brilliance with high limit as well. The one thing is, though, I feel like that car he's got going on right now, very, very nice equipment, very good car and good team. Would he leave that to go to Bill Rose's operation? If some guy walked up to you and said, hey, you want to run the Outlaw Tour for a few weeks? I feel like that's going to be kind of tough to turn down. But I've got Emerson Axum at number 3. Now, let's get over to the PA side of things and that one race in New York. Guys that are going to be fast on big racetracks, and they've been there before in their career. They run there on a weekly basis. And some of these guys, I could actually see this happening, right? So the first one on the board here, number 4, and, this might be a little bit crazy, but I'm going to put Kerry Madsen on there. Kerry Madsen has been really good this year at Knoxville, hasn't gotten a win. He ran second a few times, ran second at Houston a few times, has been good as well, almost won a race with high limit at RPM Speedway earlier this year. And Kerry Madsen's been kind of hopping around from ride to ride, and he's one of those guys that I feel like can get in somebody else's stuff and make it go fast in little or no, not much time at all, right? So I'm going to put Kerry Madsen, who in my opinion should still be on some kind of national tour in some capacity. He's just too good of a driver to not be out there. I've got him at number 4 on the PA and New York side of the schedule for driving Bill Rose's car. Now, the third guy, and you might be thinking, well, Chase, why is this guy above Kerry Madsen? Well, I think this one's a little bit more doable. I think we could see Justin Whittle get behind the wheel of Bill Rose's car. Justin Whittle, he owns his own operation. I feel like a lot of guys have their own stuff, right? But if somebody calls them and says, hey, you want to run mine? They would rather spend somebody else's money and potentially crash somebody else's stuff and I'm not just talking about Justin Whittle, I'm just talking about people in general. They would rather run somebody else's stuff and wear it out than run their own stuff and potentially tear their stuff up. But Justin Whittle, had that really bad wreck earlier this year at Port Royal, came back after taking a few weeks off. He tried to race the Weicker, was not feeling too hot after hot laps, called it a day, comes back a few weeks later and gets a win. And Justin Whittle, I think he's even got a win at the Grove last year. So I'm going to put Whittle on the board. He might be a little underrated. I spelled his name wrong, actually. Let me put another L right there. So sorry about that, Justin, if you're watching this video. But I got Justin Whittle at number 3. I think he's an up-and-coming driver. He's really improved here over the last couple of years, and he races against good competition every week in PA. So put him at number 3. Now, number 2 on the board, and I could actually see this one happening. I really do think we could see Chase Dietz driving Bill Rose's car. Chase Dietz obviously drives the Zemco car, and that is at Port Royal only. We have not seen the Zemco car, at least I haven't seen it at Williams Grove in a long time, right? And we've seen Chase Dietz run his own 2D car very well at the Grove here over the last couple of years. He does have quite a bit of laps at BAPS. Now, I don't know how he would do at Weed Sport. I'm not sure. That might be one where you're like, okay, maybe put Danny Varon in the car. I'm not sure. But Chase Dietz, number 2 on the list for the PA side of things. I think he's a guy that would rather run somebody else's stuff instead of his own. That's a really big-time family operation there for Chase Dietz. And, I don't know how their stuff goes or whatever, but I feel like it's not a thing where it's like, hey, if we wreck 3 cars in one weekend, we're coming back next week. We got more stuff laying around. Like, that's not the case with this team, right? I think Chase Dietz could be behind the wheel of Bill Rose's 6th car for that little session between the Grove, BAPS, and Weed Sport. But who knows? I'm just putting this on the idea board because I think it's a little interesting. And the final guy on this one, and there's just no way this is going to happen, right? But if it did, it would be super cool. But I just think it would almost be a step down a little bit for this guy. He's had a really, really good season so far, and that's Troy Wagaman Jr. 3 or 4 wins this year, a couple at the Grove. I think he got one at Lincoln as well. I think Troy Wagaman has been one of those guys. We did a video a few weeks ago about Danny Sams and Cole Macedo having breakout years. Cale Thomas, Emerson Axum, breakout years. Troy Wagaman himself has had a breakout year. There is just no chance that he's going to leave the Hefner Racing 27 to go to Bill Rose's car. That Hefner 27 runs weekly at the Grove. He's already won there. I think he almost won that race at BAPS when Corey Eliason was there. He won. That was in the Hefner car. Weed Sport, I have no idea if he's ever been there before, but maybe that's the race he runs Bill's car. I have no idea, right? But I think that Wagaman is definitely a really long stretch. I think Madsen's a really long stretch. But a guy like Cale Thomas, a guy like Caleb Henry, a guy like Chase Dietz or Justin Whittle, could they jump in to see the Bill Rose 6 car? Who knows? We're going to find out hopefully here pretty soon because they have a race coming up on June 28th, next Friday, so 1 week from today. So Bill Rose probably got the phone calls going off right now. And this ain't the first time this has happened. Bill put cars in his deal or put people in his cars just last year, So Bill's probably got a lot of people calling him right now. Maybe this video will help him out. I have no idea, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you again here very soon on the channel. Thanks.